Late yesterday, the Romney campaign did say FEMA has a role to play in disaster relief, but it didn't go much farther than that. So let's talk about FEMA and the candidates. Maria Cardona is a CNN contributor and Democratic strategist. Ron Bonjean is a Republican strategist. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks.
Good morning, Carol.
Good morning. So, Ron, let's start with you. Are you clear on where Romney stands on FEMA?
Well, yes, Mitt Romney has said in the past that he thinks that there should be a greater role for the states and the private sector to handle FEMA. But I'll tell you what, I think it's really smart for him not to talk about FEMA right now, because you're in the middle of a natural disaster, a hurricane that's destroyed millions of people's lives. And so to start talking about that and inject in that would not be a good idea. I got to say, FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate is actually doing a good job. I mean, he has a great reputation as the head of FEMA, but I think this is much more of a long-term discussion that, if he's president, or when he's president, that he can have, but to get in the middle of it right now during a natural disaster, let FEMA do its job, and then look at the record and see where mistakes were made and where it can be improved. And I guarantee you that the states and the private sector could also help with and have a better role in this management.
Well, Maria, he does have one point, because FEMA can be, shall we say, inefficient. I mean, who can forget the toxic FEMA trailers for Katrina survivors? And the states know what's best. They know what they need best. So why not send FEMA's duties to the states and private industry? He does have a point on those issues, right?
Well, here's the issue with what Romney said or didn't say. And Ron's right that Romney is smart in not answering the question because he has no answer, Carol. And as I predicted on your program on Monday, his comments during the primary are coming back to haunt him, which I guess is appropriate since today is Halloween. And the fact that even his spokesperson said that, yes, there is a role for FEMA, but it should be focused on the states. Well, guess what? That's exactly what FEMA is doing now. They are taking their lead from the states. Just ask Chris Christie how that's working out. And he has, as you have said before, huge praise. But I think this goes further in terms of the problem for Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, Carol. Look at what Paul Ryan's budget does to the quote-unquote state aid where apparently Romney wants FEMA placed. Ryan's budget cuts state aid by 22%, which would mean, in fact, an over 60% cut to disaster aid when it comes to the state. So again, their math, their comments just do not add up.
Okay, so Ron, if Mitt Romney did answer those 14 questions about FEMA, and he said something positive about FEMA, wouldn't then Republicans have to admit that sometimes government is good?
Well, I don't think it's bad to necessarily praise FEMA in the middle of a natural disaster if they deserve it. During Hurricane Katrina, obviously they didn't. They made a great number of mistakes. But if Mitt Romney started talking about FEMA, then that becomes the campaign message during the last few days before the election. I think he'd rather be talking about the economy and rather focused on the states that he's trying to shore up rather than get involved in a national conversation over the role of FEMA. That would be leading national news. It's smart for just us to be talking about it right here, but not smart for him to be going into that conversation. And about Paul Ryan's budget, Paul Ryan did not advocate cutting FEMA in his 2011 budget, according to the Mitt Romney campaign. Just to fact check that.
Look at the reports, though. He cuts state aid, Ron, and that's exactly where FEMA would be in a Romney administration.
I'm just saying that the records.
Well,
and so do the
like
reports.
Paul Ryan's a big FEMA supporter, and by the way, President Obama right now is meeting with FEMA. So Maria, I'm just going to let you button it up for fairness' sake. So button it up quickly for me because I got to go to break.
So this actually magnifies the difference between the visions of these two candidates, Carol, and that is whether you want a streamlined, mean, efficient government that actually can work for the people, as opposed to a candidate in Mitt Romney who clearly doesn't know how to handle or manage government, and so in his eyes, we should just eliminate it. That is, I think, the choice that voters are facing this November, between a candidate who understands how to help middle class, how to help storm survivors with the kind of aid that FEMA does give by helping through the states, versus a candidate who just wants to eliminate everything and give it to the private sector.
Okay, I got to wrap it up. I'm sorry, Ron Bonjean, Maria Cardona, thank you so much for the interesting discussion this